Good morning and welcome to the April 30th Community of Practice meeting, where we aim to foster alignment, coordination, and collaboration within the statewide digital equity ecosystem. On behalf of the State of California and the Department of Technology, we thank you for being here. Please use the chat box to share your name, job title, and affiliated organization as more folks are coming in. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. Presenters, please cue Ricky to advance your slides. Select side-by-side speaker mode for the best viewing experience when slides are shared and for visibility of the ASL interpreters. We have seen requests for closed captioning in our pre-registration questions, so I want to take some time to remind folks that closed captioning is available by selecting CC Closed Caption on your toolbar and select Show Subtitle. If you cannot find it, please click the icon with 3 dots for more options. Please note there is time allocated for questions. Use the Q&A box to type your questions related to that portion of the agenda while the speaker is presenting. Use the raise hand icon on Zoom or *9 if you're calling in by phone. Our team will request that you come off mute and video. Feel free to turn on your mic and camera at that time. Chat will be off while the presenters are speaking so that no questions are lost in the chat. Chat will be available when prompted. This meeting is being recorded. We will be posting the recording, slides, and transcripts of this meeting to the Broadband for All portal. Use the QR code listed on your screen or click on the link in the chat to access the post-meeting materials from past events. Because of this, AI note-taking bots are not permitted and will be removed from the meeting. Next slide, please. Today's agenda will begin with welcome and a report out on the recent community feedback we have received. Then we will hear updates from CPUC on the California Lifeline Home Broadband Pilot Program. Our guest speaker today, Veer Zakhem, will present on artificial intelligence and digital equity. Next, CETF is back to share some updates on the recent Verizon merger public benefit agreement listening sessions. The California State Library will be joining us to share an exciting digital literacy and access opportunity. Lastly, we will close out the meeting with some CDT OBDL updates. Now, I would like to introduce Deputy Director Scott Adams to provide some welcome remarks.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the monthly Digital Equity Community of Practice. We can't underscore how completely honored and grateful we are for your ongoing partnership and collaboration as we collectively move to implement Broadband for All and achieve digital equity here in California. And as Amanda went over the agenda, we've got a really exciting group of speakers here. Next slide, please. As we do at all of these meetings, wanted to set up and establish that the goals of Broadband for All, there are 3 long-term goals for all California residents. The first is really focusing on the infrastructure deployment efforts on the middle and last mile. We do not cover updates on goal 1 here, but we do focus on goals 2 and 3, which are that all Californians have access to affordable broadband and necessary devices, and that all Californians can access training and support to enable digital inclusion. Next slide. So just wanting to go over the meeting norms. One of the great benefits of this community of practice is that it's really, geared towards and developed for bi-directional kind of unfiltered conversation between, the community, the speakers that we bring here. So because of that, we wanted to underscore some norms here for how we interact with each other. The first are that only questions and comments that relate to items on the agenda will be addressed. We will be monitoring the chat. We don't expect this to happen, but any disruptive behaviors will not be tolerated. And if there are disruptive behaviors, it's really no warning mode here. Individuals will be removed from the meeting. That being said, though, we anticipate this is going to be a phenomenal meeting. Looking forward to engaging with all of you. And now wanted to hand it over to my colleague, Ann Wynn, to go over what we've been learning from the feedback that you've all been so generous in providing in the pre-registration questions for these communities of practice. And over to you.
Thanks, Scott. And again, I want to emphasize what Scott said earlier about the community of practice meetings were designed to be bidirectional and collaborative. So we want to thank you for adding a lot of feedback to our survey and registration. So one of the first questions we asked was what digital equity topics would you like to see featured in future meetings? And I'm glad to say there's a lot of feedback and a few that I would like to highlight in which we've already implemented and you've been seeing. For example, is our ACP replacement updates and affordability. You'll see later that Lifeline and CPUC is a continued and ongoing guest speakers in the community of practice. Many of you recommended topics related to artificial intelligence, so we're glad to welcome Vera here today. Just last time we talked about Dropped, which covered data protection and privacy. We had Dr. Gonzalez from UC Santa Barbara came to talk about large device ownership. And so keep them coming. We're really glad to see all your recommendations, and we'll strive our best to plan and invite our speakers to cover these topics. Next slide, please. Okay, and then some of the speakers you recommended are listed here as well. PUC ongoing participation. We had librarians, I think I would say 2 community practice ago, Sunny McPeak from CETF. And again today, Kat from CETF is coming to talk through the Verizon virtual listening sessions, and of course, Vera. So continue, please add your recommendations. We do look at them and we'll invite them according to scope and the guest speakers' availabilities. Next slide, please. How can we improve these meetings? As mentioned earlier, there are some that we are working on, but a lot has been implemented. For example, accessible engagement, such as closed captioning, having our ASL interpreters, continue to bring subject matter experts, and then continuing to share resources post-meeting. I hope you find our thank you email post-meeting helpful so that you can access our recordings, our PowerPoint, etc. At your own pace. And then we've extended longer Q&A session. You'll see later in this meeting. And you'll see here and more how we have integrated grants updates where Araceli and our guest speaker, Josh Chisholm, will share a bit more later in this agenda. So with that, I think I have one more slide before handing. There we go. Any comments and questions for us? Some of you asked for more meetings, so we do have one monthly until the end of the year. And then other questions include, and recognizing that folks, this is your first meeting, so sometimes we do give some context, but again, hopefully we build a community here with this community of practice, and we're also glad to hear your comment, feedback that we're doing a good job, and we will try to continue to do better. With that, I would like to pause for any questions that folks have for Scott and myself before introducing our next speaker. All right, I am seeing none hand raised and none in chat. So I'll move on. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Loy Nguyen from CPUC to talk about the California Lifeline Home Broadband Pilot Program. Loy, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. We're happy to be back to bring you the latest update on the pilot program. We'll also share the subscriber participation data with you all and explain the application process. Next slide, please. In slide 1 shows that all 16 service providers who have filed the advice letters with us have been approved. We're happy to share that 2 local agencies, the City and County of San Francisco and the City of Ontario, have submitted their registration forms to initiate the approval process to join the pilot program as described in the resolution T17903. Next slide, please. On slide 2, you'll see that the 8 service providers highlighted in bold have submitted their marketing materials, received approval for them, completed onboarding and system testings, and are now enrolling subscribers. Lisa will share subscriber participation data and walk through the application process with you. Lisa?
Thank you, Lori. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Next slide, please. So this is going to give you a pretty current subscriber count on the broadband pilot. These numbers are as of last week, April 22nd. We had a total of 9,430 individuals enrolled into the broadband pilot. 75% about we're seeing come in at broadband only plans and 25% under the bundled plans. So give you a little breakdown even further. For broadband only, there's a total of 7,056. 1,371 of those are transfers. So they were already in a Lifeline, either wireline or wireless service, and they transferred their service over to broadband. And 5,685 of those are new enrollees. And funnily enough, it kind of correlates. The numbers equal about 75% as new enrollees and 25%, a little different, but it kind of matches up there percentage-wise. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're still getting a lot of questions around the application process, so we wanted to walk you through that. First and foremost, where does it start? An individual needs to determine if there's an approved broadband provider in their area. They can do that by going to californialifeline.com and clicking on the provider search, which you will see in red, big red arrow going down to it. That's what they're going to want to click. Next slide. This is the next screen that they'll get when they click on that provider search. They're going to enter their zip code and select the type of service they're looking for. So in this example, we're saying they're looking for the home broadband service, and then they'll click on search. Next slide, please. This screen is going to present them with their options. And so they can see the name of the provider. They're able to view their download and upload speeds, price of the plan, as well as you'll see a compare button there. So if an individual sees a couple plans that they want to kind of drill down to and get a side-by-side view, they can click on that compare and select a couple of plans to view. What you don't see here is there's also more options for this individual than what's going to show on one slide. So they would be able to scroll down and get a full list of all the providers and plans. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is going to be hard for everyone to read, but you will get these slides and be able to go through them. But essentially, once an individual, they learn that, great, I have a provider in my area, this is who I want to select, they're going to contact that service provider to start the application process and tell the provider that they are interested in applying for the California Lifeline Home Broadband Pilot. That service provider is going to review eligibility rules with them, and they're going to take all of their information and send that over to the program through the third-party administrator, who is Maximus. From there, you'll see it splits into 2 different paths depending on if they are applying for broadband bundled or the standalone broadband. So they're basically, in a nutshell, what's going to happen next is the TPA is going to contact that individual directly. And it goes into two different paths, because depending on if they're applying through standalone or if they're going for bundled, the contact method may be a little bit different. For standalone broadband, they're going to get an email. And if they're in the bundled broadband, they might get a text, phone call. But either way, it's going to lead them to the customer portal to create an account. So when the individual goes to create an account, they will be able to complete their application process there. So they started it with the service provider, they're going to complete it with the program. They might have to provide supporting documents showing that they're eligible or identity verification. The portal will let them know, so they can complete that right on the portal. If by chance they don't, and it's just sitting there, within 10 days that they haven't taken action, we're going to automatically mail them a hard copy of the application to the address they submitted in their initial request to get the application process started. So we'll just automatically send that to them. They can still at any time finish it on the portal, or they can wait, get the application, and it's going to come in a bright pink envelope so it stands out. It will have a return address, self-addressed envelope in there, already prepaid postage, that they can fill out the hard copy and send it back to us. Once we get it back, the TPA is going to review it and determine eligibility. They're going to make a decision if this person is approved or denied based on everything that they have. And they will then do two things. They're going to notify the customer. So the customer is going to get an email that says, I am approved or denied. And we will also notify the service provider, so all parties are aware. And once approved, then the benefits begin immediately. Next slide, please. Which I think will bring us to our questions. Perfect. So if anyone has any questions for Loy and I, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Loy and Lisa, for continuing to join us at our community of practice to share key updates on the California Home Broadband Lifeline program. And especially walking us through the visual, that was really, really helpful. I would like to open up the floor to see if folks have any questions. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand or use the Q&A box, and please unmute yourself if you're ready to ask any questions or if you have any comments or need further clarification.
Yeah, thank you so much, Patrick Messick from the East Bay Broadband Consortium. That was a super helpful overview of the customer-facing process. So thank you for going through that. Two quick questions. One, the provider lookup tool is super helpful for an individual pulling up their specific zip code. But for more like regional or local efforts, going zip code by zip code to figure out what providers are available on what plans where can make it kind of difficult to provide a higher level overview. Complementing the zip code lookup tool, will there be a tool that's more regional? I would imagine like a Comcast map that like shows all, colors in a map, all the areas where they're offering plans, or CalMet, just to make it kind of like see the forest from the trees a little bit. So that's my first question. The second one is that slide was really helpful going over the kind of consumer process. Just a question on that first step. They contact their ISP. It sounds like their ISP almost like verifies that they're eligible, but maybe they don't need to submit information to their ISP. They would do that through the third party. I guess I'm just unclear as to why can't they start at that second step, which is just like going to California Lifeline, qualifying for the benefit first, and then going to their ISP, a process more similar to ACP. But again, really want to thank you for going through that process. It made it a lot more clear.
Thanks, Patrick. Great questions. First, I will say regarding the mapping tool, we don't have that today, but it is something we would like to do and are exploring. So I definitely think there's potential for that. I don't know how soon it will happen. We also, in terms of mapping, would love to just be able for individuals to kind of see in their region what they might qualify through. So like maybe they're on tribal lands. And so that could be included in that, hey, I'm enrolled in this tribal program, which makes me eligible for Lifeline. And so there's a lot of things that we see we would be able to potentially enhance through mapping. So thank you for that. we'll definitely take that feedback. Regarding starting the process with the service provider. So they do actually start the application process with the provider. So they're going to that service provider. They're basically taking, think of the service provider has a tablet there with them, and they're kind of filling in all the application information for them. And they send that via metadata over to the third-party administrator. And the third-party administrator then looks at it, and they're doing a couple things. They're doing an identity check. They're seeing, can I check their enrollment through a database? So from there, they just kind of have to see, what do we need as next steps for the individual to complete the process, which that's why they then go to the portal, because it might be for some individuals, they need to upload identity documents. Maybe others don't, because they were able to confirm it electronically. So that's why they start it at one place, but they do need to finish it with us, because what's needed for each individual might be a little different. And I did see a question in the chat if it's possible to get a breakdown on the new subscribers by county. And that is something we can pull and get provided to you all.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for getting ahead of there. I do see there are a few other questions. I see one that says, when I search for plans, I see many that are 75 down and 10 up, but the pilot program requires 100 or 20. So why are those plans listed?
Great question. I'll take
Go ahead.
Great. In the decision itself, the minimum service standard is 120. However, there are two exceptions where if the certain areas are for the speed is not feasible, then they get the exception of providing speed lower than the minimum service standards. Or if there are low cost income qualified plans that the providers offer that is lower than the minimum service standards, but they also offer plans that meet or exceed the minimum service standards, which also receive an exemption. So that's why you probably see that.
Thank you so much. And I do see that Kat asked that question. I do see there's another question by Mark. It states, will third parties like CTF's Get Connected call center be able to assist people in signing up for the Lifeline program?
So I see that as it's something that's on our roadmap, but not something that can happen today. They have to start today, the process at the service provider. That's not to say that they wouldn't be able to answer questions for them, because all of the information is public, but they wouldn't be able to help sign them up. We do envision something in the future where we have a trusted partner approach, and where other people can, just like street team agents with service providers, kind of more aid an individual in signing up for Lifeline, but we're not there today.
Thank you so much for responding to that. Eduardo Gonzalez posted in the chat, what is the typical length from the application to approval?
Great question. And it really varies, because it's dependent upon how quickly customers complete the process. And, if someone needs supporting documents, or they need to upload their identity documents, if they decide to go through the mail. So it really is all over the map. I would say very common within a month. Because a lot of times people wait a little bit, they mail in, and we give like a 22-day process for you to sign to return your items. At this point, we'll send you a reminder. So we want to give every opportunity. So we really give a long runway before someone is going to be denied for not responding. But it really is all over the map. But pretty commonly within a month, they'll do everything they need to do. But we see people much faster as well. So for perspective, we have about 18,000 applications that are in flight right now. So you can see that the enrollment number, we could easily double, triple over the next couple months, but it's just a continual flow as we wait for people to take the action.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Very helpful. I do see there's another question in the chat by Eric Sasaki. The question is, does the price listed in the provider search results include the pilot subsidy? for example, the final price to the consumer?
Yes, the prices, the plans with the speed, there should be the price to the consumer after the subsidy has been applied. Yes.
Thank you so much. It looks like those are all the questions that we received so far, and we definitely look forward to having you return next month to continue to provide any updates and yeah, continue to ask or to answer questions from folks that are very much interested in supporting these efforts. So thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much, Loy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, Loy, Arceli, and all the participants who asked questions. Next, I would like to bring up Vera Zakem, our CDT Chief Technology Innovation Officer. There you go, Vera. Thanks for joining us. Take it away.
Thank you. I think next slide. I don't know if anyone has. Great. So first of all, just really delighted to be here. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, An. Thank you, everybody, for the invitation. I'm Vera. I'm the Chief Technology Innovation Officer for the state of California. And my job is, and within that, I lead the Office of Digital Services within CDT. So I'll talk about this in a second. But this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, particularly how AI intersects with digital equity and the ability to make sure that we're thinking about everyone and be inclusive as possible. Obviously, California is a very diverse state with 40 million people, over 200 languages. And a lot of people are looking at California, not just in the United States, but all over the world. I have joined the state a little over a year ago, and I was in the previous administration at the federal level at the U.S. Agency for National Development as the Chief Digital Democracy and Rights Officer. I was in private sector and other places before that. But I mention all of that because I have seen on the ground and have been in many countries, represented over 100 countries and lower middle income countries. And I say that because you really get to see sort of the impact that technology has on people and the opportunity there to be really inclusive, making sure the technology does serve for all, including AI. So, just a little bit about ODS and what ODS does. As you see here, we are advancing platform standards, emerging tech, for not just for CT, but really for the state. We have under the state CIO, I actually have a statewide remit. And we are fundamentally, I have a couple of key priorities. Maybe next slide was, if I can get next slide, please. Okay, so let me kind of tell you a little bit about the vision, the purpose, and kind of our priorities. So this is our vision. It's where everyone in California has equitable access to simple and secure digital services that minimize risks. And fundamentally, this is really about building public trust, right? Including related to emerging technologies, and that also includes AI. And what we really are after is making sure that we are providing those people-centered, human-centered design and approaches for services to Californians. Next slide. Let me there's a slide in terms of the emerging tech functions, but just a little bit more about the ODS. I focus on three things. One is just talked about digital services. So it's really about how do you ensure that technology and digital solutions deliver for the people in partnership with departments and agencies in California. The second is this emerging tech bucket that you see here. And this is really thinking about the effective and responsive adoption governance of new technologies. It is also really thinking about, we coordinate, we do policy coordination, experimentation across the various departments and agencies, and certainly in CDT as it relates to AI as well. And then the third component of a lot of the work that we do is really building partnerships and trust with different entities, whether it's across the state of California, but also across academic, nonprofits, industry, as well as international governments. Next slide. So these are just a couple of things, just to orient in terms of AI, what we do right now. This is not, just to be very clear, this is not all of what um, we, certainly within CDT or state of California. This is just some of the things that we're right now are engaged in, specific, very concrete projects. One is for the CDT side, we are leading the implementation of the Frontier AI governance work that has been required by the Transparency and Frontier AI Act, otherwise known as SB 53, that was signed by the governor this past legislative season. We are engaged very closely in implementing the governor's agenda on the Governor's Technology Innovation Council, most especially focused on Emerging Technology Accelerator and how do you actually ensure that we're modernizing government service delivery and delivering services to residents, as well as work around protecting kids online from not just child safety, but from image-based abuse. And then if you haven't been part of, just in case, I think my colleague Katie Regan is on the call as well. We have been leading the statewide AI community of practice, and that has been just an amazing community where we bring not only external speakers and external thought leaders so they can share their insights about AI in terms of everything from governance, trust to adoption and implementation of solutions to sort of state department and agencies to share what they're doing and what we can actually learn from them. Because at the end of the day, we want to, just like this, we want to create a very collaborative space for engagement and learning so the departments and agencies can learn from one another as well, in addition from our external partners and speakers. Next slide, or is this one it? That's it. Okay. So just open it up. I know, Scott, excited to have a little conversation with you and then answer any questions, of course.
Can we please take the slides down? Thank you so much. Vera, really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us at the Digital Equity Community of Practice. As I have shared with you a number of times that, I think our stakeholders and partners here are really interested about the work that you and your peers or our CDT peers are doing at the Office of Digital Services that you're working on. In the past, we've heard from the Digital ID team, and you guys did some work on the DROP program that we heard from also. But what we're particularly interested in is hearing about the intersection of AI and digital equity. So I've got a couple questions. You said you're the more of a fireside chat to prime that, but then really want to open it up to the community. So community would encourage you, if you want to raise your hands in advance or put questions in the chat, please do that, because Vera, has offered to be here for a significant portion of time to engage in this conversation with us. So without further ado, Vera, so my first question for you is that you mentioned that you and the team are leading the effort on frontier AI governance. And so not all of us are, seasoned technologists like you. So number one, what is frontier AI? And then how are you and your team going about kind of even looking at governance from a state perspective?
Yeah, so those are actually two interesting questions. There's two pieces of the question I do want to answer. So frontier AI, that we're talking about frontier developers that are actually creating, um, creating the models, right? That of course are being trained on data, but these are the ones that are actually creating the models, right? That folks use. I think a lot of folks these days, are using artificial intelligence for within, work or even for personal use, right? To whether it's to create something, to answer questions, to simplify tasks, whatever it may be. So that's different from AI in state of California operations per se, although we have our state digital assistant called Poppy, that I know our colleague, leads that effort as well. That's designed for state by state. But the idea here is that, there's AI or artificial intelligence and Gen AI that we've developed, we've developed, POCs and everything like that that's used within the state environment to help our operations for our effectiveness and efficiency. And then there's also, and so when you think, so there's governance there and thinking about those risks internal for within state operations, right? But that's it. But that's different a little bit from, the frontier AI space only insofar because what especially the Transparency Frontier AI Act asks, it's asking us to actually, what the CDT portion specifically, what that is really about is it's really looking to look at the actual definitions as they are there in the actual legislation. There's three definitions. And really, what we're going to be doing is putting together a report to the legislature whether those definitions should be updated. To do so, we are, have solicited input. We have an input channel on our CDT website from various parts of the stakeholder community as the legislation mandates, including open source, academia, industry, and other governments, as well as also looking at national and international standards as well. So, and because that also looks at, things like threshold and compute and looks at risks as well. The way the bill is written, CDT is just one piece of it, right? Cal OES, which is another department, they have another piece of it which talks about transparency and risk reporting, particularly as it relates to catastrophic risks. And there's other components and other departments and agencies are involved in this piece. So I say all of that, I describe all of that because it's a little bit different looking for like what in terms of governance, for this particular bill, it's less looking sort of at governance, but we're going to be making a recommendation to the legislature whether or not those definitions should be updated for frontier AI. Now, as I mentioned, for governance within the state environment, that looks a little bit different. We are thinking through, are the right kind of, guardrails are in place, risk assessment is done, how do we make sure we're still, we're not stifling innovation, while we're actually making sure that the AI is used effectively, equitably, and responsibly.
Well, thank you for making those two distinctions too. So the governance piece is how the state uses it.
And it can be on
And
the frontier AI too, like in
yeah,
terms of the governance side of it as well. Absolutely, right? But in terms of, my distinction was what kind of this particular piece of legislation asks us to do. There's plenty, folks that are obviously focused on governance on this side, but for within the state, obviously, we're also a little bit more focused on what governance means within the state environment.
that's great. And also, it's a really exciting work on that you're doing in terms of reviewing the definitions of frontier AI, and really excited. I know you and Katie and team have a lot on your hands as you're soliciting feedback and input from stakeholders. I would note that there's as part of the digital equity community practice, there's a lot of local government folks that are participating in this. And I know that's one of the groups that you're really looking to hear from. So let me pivot a little bit. You were talking about the work, Governor's Innovation Council and Emerging Tech Accelerator. Those both sound really cool. Or it sounds really cool. Could you tell us about that? And
Yeah.
some of the work you're doing focusing on child online safety and image-based abuse, or trying to, you know,
Mitigate that.
mitigate that. Yeah.
um, so in no, I'm going to make sure I have the exact date correct. I think it was in November of last year, the governor stood up a Technology Innovation Council with, I think with a simple idea that we can use technology to benefit, the state of California and Californians, right? And to do so, how can we, partner with the best and brightest institutions and organizations and leaders, and certainly those not just from industry, but actually in this case, those being represented by academic institutions and nonprofit organizations as well, um, to really provide, uh, work with the state of California and, quite frankly, build on the great work and the success that's happening in the state of California across the various departments and agencies, and help us move the needle forward. I mean, that's what this is all about. I mean, the council broadly, there's actually, and then I know if Katie, we can share the press release if you've missed this, we can. So as I'm talking, we can share with you the press release in a second from November, so you can see who's on the council and who's also like all the different working groups. But broadly speaking, there's 4 groups. One is about modernizing government service delivery, which is the Emerging Technology Accelerator. It's kind of like, we're partnering with these Emerging Technology Accelerator partners, which are nonprofit and academic institutions, to really think through like, okay, how can we partner with them, with departments and agencies within the state of California, and on various things. It could be AI readiness and responsibility. There you go. Okay, just drop the press release so you have a little bit more context. It can be around accessibility. It can be about data. There's a number of things. It's like straight up kind of innovation service delivery, depending on the different use cases, but actually to enhance, not so much as like, let's just start brand new projects, but more so from the perspective of there's a lot of really great work again that's happening in the state of California. So like, let's help build on this great work. And then there are, as you see in this press release, there's a working group on counter fraud. One is really focused about like innovation economy, and workforce development. And then another one that Kitty and I and a few others are involved with the Office of the First Partner and State Board of Education, which has been like super lovely, which has really been focused around protecting the most vulnerable populations, especially in this case, our kids. And thinking about, if you think, I mean, for those of you who are parents, our kids are these days are very much exposed to AI and using, AI tools. And some of it is fantastic and great, in terms of learning and, figuring out how to use them. But, in the age of social media, in the age of AI being like changing all the time. I mean, this technology is constantly changing. If you're at all following how a lot of the companies are developing this sort of, releasing the new models, right? There's a lot of new features. And so, but what has happened is part of this digital literacy piece becomes super, super important, and AI literacy as well. And what happens is, when especially not exclusively, of course, but people go online, in this case kids, as they're learning, how do you actually use it safely, also thinking about the actual, the educators and our administrators, to make sure that we're giving them the right tools as well. And then in this bounds, because there's been a lot of evidence and data how kids specifically have been exposed to non-consensual imagery and have been targeted in this space, and also hate harassment in this space as well, particularly around safety, uh, including, you know, uh, with sort of Gen AI products. This is more of like a focus. So this is not just kind of like for this particular working group or line of effort. Let's focus all about like kids online. There's a lot of really great resources, including from the state of California and our Department of Education. But this is a little bit more narrowly focused on this kind of like a child safety, non-consensual imagery piece of it, just because of this, acute problem right now, or challenge.
Well, I know that as a parent, I'm very proud that the state and you and the various partners are working on these issues. And one of the things that I would just reiterate and echo is that in the extensive engagement process to develop the state digital equity plan, the thing that we heard a lot in our 20 regional planning sessions is absolutely like we want to close the digital divide and focus on how do we accomplish access, and how do we overcome barriers to affordability, and how do we overcome barriers to adoption. But there was also that concern by folks that it's like, yeah, as we, work to get the most vulnerable, in our communities connected, sometimes for the first time, there's some responsibility with that. Like, how are we informing them about, the harms, not just the opportunity, but the harms. So it's really exciting that you guys are doing this work, and looking forward to tracking the progress that you make as you go along. Um, the next question I have is kind of maybe related to this and related to the other work. When I believe the request we got from folks to have you come on was not just your work on AI, but your work on public-private partnerships. And so maybe you can tell us if you can share some names. I know you shared the press release here, but what does the collaboration look like, with academia and, the
Sure.
private sector folks? And then
So,
what's it look like even amongst the state partners?
yeah, so I am of a belief that this has been actually a through line in my career everywhere I've gone, and local, national, whatever, anywhere in various industries. You can't, no matter how great your organization is or entity is, you just can't do things alone, right? You really need those strong partnerships who you can trust, that can you can trust, and who can go on the journey with you, right? To build that greater product and all of this kind of stuff. So all of that's to say is one of the things that I set out to do really when I first got on and got appointed was that, it's with this whole thesis of how can we use some of these partnerships to help California in this technology and digital space. So I think it looks, a little bit different. Like, we have, and actually going to talk about one other one that you mentioned. We have strong partnerships with the university. And let me be very also clear, CDT in the state of California has really rich set of partners beyond anything that I have actually myself focused on or developed. So I've just been able to add a little sprinkle, if you will, to a lot of the work. That's great work that's already been done. But, just to give you an example, I'll just highlight a couple of things. You know, um, let's look at Stanford and UC Berkeley. I would just look at those two partners specifically. You know, uh, we are, one is last summer, we brought in four amazing fellows from Stanford who were actually working with us to not just do policy research or anything like that, but actually build products and help us with human-centered design and user testing. And not just on my team, on some of my peer teams as well, and some of our peer teams as well. And it's been wonderful. And coming from very different backgrounds, right? Some computer science, some political science, philosophy education. And then, Stanford is one of our emerging tech accelerator partners as well. And, they're kind of, helping us to think sort of some of the hard questions, if you will, on how to use AI effectively and responsibly, and, partnering with, various departments and agencies. And then the same thing, with UC Berkeley. I'll just give an example there where, the university is, for the accelerator, which, the partnership was with broader university, but it's so much, there's so many colleges and labs and all that kind of great stuff in the research that they're doing as an example. And so there too, we're like, working with, a number of on, different elements or parts of the university, I should say, whether it could be on AI, it can be on some of the more policy related questions. It can be, last summer, Katie and I and a few other colleagues across from state of California attended a wonderful workshop that was organized by Mozilla and UC Berkeley on open source and how we use open source technology and how that can be, of benefit to communities and to people. And that was just like super lovely. And just so happens within the Office of Digital Services, we house the open source portal and the open data portal. So that was really exciting, like learning opportunity. And then the other thing is, and this is sort of, beyond sort of Berkeley, Stanford, even though they're, accelerator partners, you know, um, we're constantly in conversations with, nonprofit partners, of course, industry, is applicable as well. And foundations as well that are also supporting, they're also supporting, great work that's out there as well. I'll just give you one additional quick example on the academic side, which is so cool. We were able to partner with the University of California. It's called Citrus. We'll post the acronym in here. I always whisper it out, and I don't want to butcher it, but it's
We know that well they contributed widely to parts of the digital equity plan too.
yeah,
So a
perfect.
lot
Yeah,
of folks here are
so
familiar.
awesome. So Citrus, perfect.
Yeah.
So so what's interesting about Citrus? It's 4 campuses, right? It's Berkeley, Davis, Merced, and Santa Cruz. So, you know, it was one of those things where the executive director reached out and be like, we have some, funds available to bring on these fellows through Citrus across the 4 campuses that can help again, help California deliver, right? And it's been amazing. This semester, actually, we have 25 fellows, not just at CDT, but across the state of California. Everyone looking from everything from AI to data to digital strategy to looking on, thinking about privacy and geospatial, like, I mean, different sets of issues, right? But it's just been super lovely to have this kind of core, collaboration across just different departments. And so this is not just the CDT thing, with, also partnering very closely with our Office in Data Innovation as well within our broader agency. So the point being is, I view them, if they can be done, I think with a couple of things, not just done right. I always say, focus small, think through like a key, like pilots, if you will, or key initial things to focus on, and then go big. If you see something, just like with anything with the technology related or anything, I would say is focus small, focus, like identify like 1 or 2 specific pilots, and then once you kind of have identified all of that, like you can expand, and that goes the same thing in terms of partnerships. But this has been, to me, this has been some of the like most rewarding work for me, not just at the state or earlier, just to be able to collaborate with all these really beautiful and amazing people and minds.
Absolutely. I think that's the name of the game, I think most efforts and most successes are born by many hands, if you will. And
Yes.
certainly we, in the digital equity ecosystem space here in California, really focus on um, collaboration and partnership and pulling the best of each other together to learn and to grow. So thanks for sharing those. I have another question, but I'm going to save that to the end. Because I know both you and I, in talking to this, we wanted to make sure we open this up to the community. So
Sure.
I know there's 2 questions in the chat. I'm wondering, Derek, do you want to come on and ask your question? Or I see that your camera's on. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask Vera your question?
Hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi, Derek.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Hey, thank you very much for the dialogue. So much information there, and there's a lot to unpack. And I'll be honest with you, my knowledge, and I think for most people, our knowledge of AI is so limited, and there's so much out there that we can utilize this resource for. And I kind of alluded to it in my question, but I looked in the article that was provided. Thank you guys for posting that. And inside there were a few resources. But just in regards to utilizing AI overall, are there any thematic approaches or issues or opportunities that you've seen, Vera, on your end that you would say, you know what, this is something that is overlooked by so many people as far as a risk or an opportunity? And these are things that we need to get out in front of people. So I was just wondering if you had any insight on that in regards to maybe a personal standpoint or an organizational standpoint.
Well, I think I guess personal and professional, whichever way you want to look at it. Um, I think there's the good thing right now, what I'm seeing, there's a lot of really, you know, there's a lot of opportunities to right now. There's a lot of like free skills courses and trainings, or even like basics, almost like AI 101, you know? Um, and I think it's just taking advantage of that just to kind of like learn the basics and kind of feel like what's kind of customizable to you, right? So let me just kind of, this is more about like broader like education, right? Um, there are a lot of resources, I mean, certainly, we have, Katie, I don't know if you can share, it's I think I might even have it on my screen right now, but I think like how we at the state like think about like just our broad like Gen AI, for California, kind of like how we're thinking about like, we have like a website that basically kind of walks you through like how we're thinking about Gen AI that we can kind of share within the state of California. All that is to say, there's a lot of, and you can kind of corroborate this information. It's not just like, certainly companies are offering a lot of free upskilling. Perfect. It's right there. Check it out how we're doing this at the state. But then, there's a lot of companies that you go, they're offering a lot of like digital literacy and upskilling. And it's useful to know because, there's a lot of tools out there now. This is not just, there's obviously like Chat GPT and Claude, and Gemini, and there's now so many popping up now. Obviously, like Perplexity and 11 Labs, like there's like a bunch, right? So it's just obviously you don't have to be the expert and go to all of these companies and figure out, but like the ones that you're actually going to think maybe even use for your personal life, or maybe professionally as well, to some degree, and whether you're just going to be asking questions or helping kind of to just sort of summarize and synthesize data and information, or create an agent kind of to help you through things, just kind of learning what's out there. And the other thing is there's a number of, certainly both academic and nonprofit partners. They have put out their own kind of, if you will, toolkits and, resources as well. Again, everything from the Berkeleys and Stanfords and, UC Davis, and also, CSUs and other universities, to also a number of nonprofit organizations as well. And now what's also happening, what's really interesting is like, people are building AI tools, if you will, in the public interest, whether it's to serve, civic participation, to serve democracy, all things of that nature as well. Like Mozilla Foundation is also a great, organization, foundation that, works in the space as well. They had just a recent, I think, AI and democracy cohort. My point being is that just depending for what it's worth, it's that. So first is definitely I'm just, from personally speaking, I think it's good to experiment and figure out like what works for you. There's different fields. Now, when you are doing this, basic sort of, if you will, this is not just AI, but digital literacy hygiene, shall we say, and then a few things on AI as well. You know, a chatbot provides information. Let's say you ask a prompt a question, you know, let's go through something super vanilla. Is the sky blue, right? But like just think it through, okay, just sort of like start to thinking through like, is this a good enough answer? Do I need to ask more granular questions? Think, corroborate your data, corroborate your sources, and also understand sometimes there is going to be bias or hallucinations as well when it comes to artificial intelligence as well. So that's part of also kind of digging in a little bit and corroborating your data, maybe checking different models. That becomes also a tool. But as part of, in terms of the state, last thing I'll say on that is, we are constantly, Katie shared one tool, but we're constantly working through and updating the different tools and capabilities that the state is offering there as well. So I'll stop there in the interest of time.
That's awesome. Thanks for the question, Derek, and thanks, Vera, for the for the answer there. There is Sydney McCartney. I'm not sure it's a question, but it's a statement in the chat, says that the CSUs are all participating in AI using the Scenic Air AI resources, and that a couple of California community colleges are now as well. So thank you for sharing that. You know, uh, Cindy, because Scenic, as you know, is the education and research network here in California. Okay, let me see. Are there any other questions from the group? Because I think I have one question that might be on everyone's mind. And maybe let me just ask this right away. And that's Vera, you and I have talked about this a lot. And I know that, folks in the community, I've spoken with a lot of them about this too. And that is, given how fast AI is moving, AI is it's a digital tool. And, in some ways it's becoming bigger than just digital literacy, but, it's kind of underneath that umbrella that, the focus of this community is to see that all California residents, even the most vulnerable, have the skills.
No worries. I think Scott anticipated this earlier, Vera, so I can jump
Okay.
in real quick with his last question.
It
Okay.
might exacerbate, the
Scott,
digital.
Scott, you cut out just for half a second. Do you mind repeating your question?
Sure.
So yeah, go ahead. I
I
missed it.
think I think Vera got it, but just do you see ways that AI can help close the digital divide? And then conversely, are there ways that we should be mindful that AI not potentially exacerbate the digital divide?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I actually do. I really, really do because I understand. We know that in California and all over the world, there are folks that one is, they're not connected, right? And the digital divide from connectivity to digital literacy is a real, real thing. So I do think from the perspective of, providing access, in some ways, if you think about it, AI could be from like education and workforce development, as long as there's connectivity. It makes sure ground zero connectivity is a major thing here. You know, it could really help those, particularly as it also think about the fact that, as these models evolve and, you know, having access to multiple languages, to understanding different contexts, to nuances. I mean, context in AI is everything. It really could help with that and provide an opportunity and provide like, whether it's different communities or children and others to really help with that as well. However, we are talking about artificial intelligence that is trained on data. So it is important to one, what I was talking about earlier, addressing to Derek about digital literacy piece of it. You have to think through and corroborate even the information that you're receiving because, the from AI, right? Just because thinking about are there, is it accounting for biases? I mean, they're getting really good, the models, and they're getting better and better to account for some of this stuff. But, it is still technology, right? Things can be missed. I mean, part of like what we, say like human in the loop to check that becomes really, really important to mitigate those risks and to just be mindful of them on the front end, right? Before they're kind of exacerbated on the back end. Like that becomes, I think that is, I think, is going to be super, super important. So we didn't talk about it. I'm glad I mentioned sort of this human in the loop because, and what that refers to, you just, you, for more of that, like contextual, especially when we're talking about digital equity, having that, having the humans to make, verify this, mitigate the bias, test the models and evaluations become really important sort of on the front end when you're thinking about guardrails and everything, and also on the back end as well. So all of those things become important. But I do think it could be really, really helpful. And I'll just speak to you also from my background internationally. I've actually seen this in different countries that how it could actually be a force multiplier for workers, for students, and actually help close the digital divide as well. We just have to be more mindful and smart about that.
I mean, so tremendous opportunity, but the tools are only as good as the data that is used to create them, and they carry the biases of the humans that do that. So we need to be mindful of that and just make sure to keep humans in the loop. Because a lot of folks here are, we had a speaker a couple months ago talking about the integration of AI content into their digital literacy training. So a lot of the folks here are already kind of part of that game. So just really, Vera, on behalf of me, your proud colleague, and our team in this community, just want to thank you and Katie for the work that you're all doing. Thanks for spending so much time, um, talking about that, and keep up the great work. We appreciate you.
No, thank you. And then if Katie can come off just real quickly off camera. Katie, I don't see you. Okay, come off. Oh, there she is. Uh, please meet Katie formally, folks. She is incredible. She has been our interim head of emerging technology governance, and none of the work that even just not just during my time, but even before me on AI wouldn't have happened without Katie. And she's just always thinking about all the different communities that we serve here in California. So she has probably more to thank her than me sometimes. So
Awesome.
Thanks, Vera.
Well, thank you, Katie. Great work, glad. And so we are going to pivot now to the rest of our agenda. And I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Scott, Vera, and Katie, for making time and joining us. Very important issues, and I'm glad that we were able to answer some of your questions. Next, I would like to bring back the slide and also invite Kat Zygmunt, Senior VP from CETF, to share a bit more about the listening sessions regarding CETF Verizon Merger Public Agreement. Kat, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Kat Zygmunt. I'm the Senior Vice President at the California Emerging Technology Fund. Next slide. I'm here today to talk about the MOU agreement that we have with Verizon. There are a couple different things we're doing in this MOU. One of the major areas is our digital inclusion work. So we have committed to getting 100,000 low-income households online and digitally proficient, and we are holding listening sessions with CBOs to be part of that initiative. Separately, we have had Verizon commit $500 million in procurement opportunities for small businesses in the state of California specifically. And if we get them to spend $150 million in procurement contracts with small businesses, they'll add another $150 million to the pot, meaning $650 million going to California small businesses. And this is an effort that is meant to improve inclusion, diversity, and equity, and have the workforce suppliers reflect the California population. So we're also doing listening sessions with small businesses here on how they can become engaged with Verizon to become their suppliers. Next slide, please. All right, so these are the two tracks I have been talking about. We have we will have had 9 sessions for each of the two tracks. CDT, the CPUC, and other stakeholders have been our listening partners in this effort, and we're really grateful for that. The digital inclusion listening sessions are Thursdays 2 to 4, and today is the last opportunity to be part of the digital inclusion listening session. The small business listening sessions have one more session specifically geared towards workforce investment boards and community colleges, but registration is currently closed for that. Next slide, please. We're going to just talk quickly about a couple of the very high level themes that we've been hearing from the listening sessions. Number one, this has really been emphasized, is that community-based organizations need more support and funding for adoption services. It's been very clear that they need capacity building funds and funds to sustain operations so that they can do this important work. It's also been emphasized that CBOs are the trusted messengers and they are the best folks to reach the digitally disadvantaged households. CBOs want assistance for digital navigation services and specifically a variety of the supports that we offer in our CETF digital equity ecosystem that help drive the community to their programs. So that has been of high benefit. There's a need for affordable computing devices and technical assistance. This is a huge theme. It would seem that getting your hands on affordable computing devices to give to the community and then providing ongoing tech support is one of the biggest needs across the board. And the last theme so far is the process for enrollment in affordable internet subscriptions really needs to be streamlined. To enable more folks to do it on the ground. So these are some of the high-level outcomes for the digital inclusion listening sessions. Next slide, please. For the small business listening sessions, we've been gathering small businesses through their Chamber of Commerce networks primarily. Small businesses have told us that they don't have time for online learning, particularly if they're not guaranteed prospective contracts. Small business networks are a valuable intermediary, and the small businesses really rely on them to provide access to these types of Verizon services or resources, rather. Higher incentives for Digital Ready and the Small Business Accelerator would increase participation. So some of these programs do require a monthly fee, and the incentives for joining these programs, which would be a contract with Verizon, needs to be bolstered. The next item is programs need to be available in multiple languages and accessible to people with disabilities who are business owners. So assuring that these programs are accessible is of high importance and demand. And lastly, networks and small businesses support the goals of workforce and suppliers that reflect the population. So that's really about engaging these networks further in order to help these small businesses take advantage of these opportunities. Next slide, please. So I want you all, if you would like to work with CETF, particularly in the digital inclusion space to get those 100,000 unconnected households online, you must attend a listening session in order to submit a grant proposal to CETF. That is going to be our first cohort, our folks that have participated in a listening session. The last listening session is today, 2 to 4. You can still register. I will double check the register right before the session and invite you to it if you go ahead and use that QR code. So I hope to see you later today if you're interested in working with CETF on this initiative. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Kat.
There we
We
go.
really appreciate your presentation and keeping us all updated on the CETF listening sessions and reporting on the common themes and just everything that's come out so far. I just want to appreciate having the opportunity to listen in and just all the great stuff that's happening through the merger. So again, we do want to open up the floor to see if folks have any questions or need any further clarification from your presentation, Kat. Please feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, or just chime in using the Q&A. Looks like someone already jumped in. They want to know where they can access the slides. If you're referring to these slides, we will be sharing out these slides following the presentation, and that will be coming out via email and also on our Broadband for All website. Looks like folks, just really want to get the link to the listening session. Kat, if you'd like to provide the link using the chat box. Looks like there's some interest there from Erin Larondos.
Hope to see you, Erin.
All right. Any other folks have any questions? If you're interested in unmuting yourself. But yeah, if not, we can go ahead and move on. I'll go ahead and pass the mic over back to Anne. Thank you so much
Thank
again,
you so
Kat.
much.
Thanks, Araceli. Thanks, Kat. Without further ado, I would like to invite Josh Chisholm from the California State Library to talk about the digital literacy and access funding opportunity. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Anne. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Chisholm. I'm the broadband manager at the State Library, and we have an open grant opportunity right now that definitely fits in with the topic of this meeting. And I want to go through that some of the details and get any questions that you all might have about it. So, next slide, please. So, for those that aren't familiar with libraries and the library world, this funding is coming from the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences as part of the federal government, and it's under the Library Sciences and Technology Act. As part of that act, we at the State Library develop a 5-year plan about what we're going to do and how we're going to utilize the funding we receive from the federal government. And this project supports specifically Goal 4 of that plan, which is strengthening equitable resource sharing and access to information and services and opportunities, emphasizing local communities. Um, Specifically, this grant opportunity is funding for public libraries to improve access to broadband and digital literacy, specifically through programs that touch on digital navigation, digital literacy training, AI safety, internet literacy for their community and patrons. There's a link here. I definitely encourage anyone that's interested to go there. All the details will be available through that link. Next slide, please. So I won't go through all of this, but this is just an overview of the type of expenditures this funding could be used for. And I should mention, I realized I did not include it in these slides. The maximum grant award is $20,000 with a minimum of $5,000. And if you're not part of a library system in California, your local library would need to be the applicant or their nonprofit, their Friends of the Library organization. But we definitely encourage collaborating with the community. Part of the funding that's available here is to pay for community organizations to come in and do these services and programs for the library and for their patrons. So if you're not with a library, but you have an idea for a program that would work within the library space, get with your local library, encourage them to apply for this. So again, we're talking about programs that support digital literacy, access, internet safety, AI safety. That would be for programming, presentations, and then also potentially devices, laptops, computer projectors, tablets. Um, those could be eligible depending on how you describe your program. And I should note that, again, there are a lot of rules around getting federal funding through this program. And one of them is that if you do use devices or purchase devices with this money, they would need to be compliant with SIPA or the Children's Internet Protection Act. Again, if you go to the grant page on our website, you'll be able to click through and see what that means. And I am also available to help folks navigate that. Next slide, please. So this application window is open now. It opened last week. It will be available to apply for through June 3rd at noon Pacific time. And the funding would start to be available on September 1st, and the grant period would cover through June 30th of next year. Now, the September 1st date is our goal. We can't award the funding until we're sure that our IMLS funding levels are confirmed and the state budget has passed. Generally, applicants can expect to receive project funds 8 to 10 weeks after the payment claim form is sent to us. And the applications have to go through our grant portal, which is called UNA. Again, if you're not with a library, it's very, very likely that your local library has used this portal to apply because all of our grants go through it. So they should already have an account. If you are with a library, make sure and use the same account you've always used with us. Again, I really encourage folks to apply for this, to talk to your local library if you are not a librarian, and encourage them if you have ideas, get together, collaborate. We really encourage the libraries to collaborate with their community and really address the specific needs of their community in their grant application. Next slide. As far as LSTA eligibility, I won't go through this slide in detail. Again, because the funding comes from them, comes from the federal government, you have to adhere to federal restrictions on that funding. And again, we'll have links on the page and in these slides to the Opportunity website, the handbook, and so forth. Next slide. And those are my slides, and I'd be happy to take any questions anyone has.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us at our community of practice to share this exciting digital literacy and access funding opportunity. Yeah, we'll definitely want to invite the audience to use the Q&A box if you have any questions, or feel free to raise your hand if you're ready to ask any questions. The chat is now open as well for folks if you're interested in putting in the chat box. But yes, this is great. It'll improve access to broadband, digital literacy in library communities, specifically for digital navigation, training, and Josh, as you mentioned, internet safety, including AI, which is really important to hear. Looks like there's a question from Patrick Messick. How many grants does CSL anticipate awarding?
Oh, that's a good question. Thanks, Patrick. So again, the maximum is $20,000. Our maximum that we can spend on this program is $200,000. So if we get a bunch of maxed out projects, there may only be 10. But again, the minimum is 5. So if folks have smaller ideas, we might be able to spread it around a bit more. But I hope that gives you an idea of the scope.
Thank you for your question. Looks like there's another question coming in, or perhaps a comment. Victor Benito sharing, thanks for the opportunity. With the funds being available between 8 to 10 weeks, are these considered advance payments or would they be reimbursements? And is there a matching requirement?
That's a good question. So it would be a reimbursement. So you would submit the payment claim form, obviously after you've been approved and you've done the project, and then the payments would come within 8 to 10 weeks. Yeah. And as far as a matching requirement, there is not a matching requirement. We obviously encourage libraries, if they have funds and want to expand the project or make it a little bigger, to do that, and to definitely include that. There's a space for that on the application portal to show that how much funding you're contributing from your local budget.
Thank you so much, Josh. We do have to move on to the next portion of our presentation. And I know you mentioned there's some office hours coming up. So folks, if you have any additional questions, please join those office hours that Josh highlighted. So I will go ahead and pass the mic over back to Anne.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Josh.
Thank you, Araceli. Thanks, Josh. Araceli, please stay on because this next portion is the CDT Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy updates, inviting back Sean, James, and Araceli, myself, in this order. Sean, go ahead.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, everybody. We can go to the next slide. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that our enhanced digital equity resource finder is now live on the Broadband for All portal. Includes a lot of great updates such as map view, a lot of filtering, being able to support whether you're looking for resources as a resident or an organization. So hope folks on this call can head over there if you haven't checked it out already. And if we want to go to the next slide. Great. A lot of good numbers are coming in on organizations that are being shown on the portal. We're up to almost 900 total locations, great outreach and representation of libraries, CBOs, continuing to get more as they come. And so that's really our ask right now. And we can go on to the next slide if you haven't already gone onto the portal and submitted your information, please do. You can scan that QR code there to either add your organization as a resource or to update it if any information has changed. Please, share the news of this portal to your community and to your colleagues so that we can continue to grow it and to make it as usable and vibrant as possible. And as always, if you have 5 or more locations, we can support with bulk uploads. So that's all I have to report on the Finder. And I think Araceli, you're up next.
Thanks, Sean. Perfect. So the Public Utilities Commission has some upcoming grant opportunities through the California Advanced Services programs. There's the Broadband Public Housing Account, the Broadband Adoption Account, as well as the Tribal Technical Assistance Program. All of these have a deadline of July 1st, so there's still plenty of time to submit applications and review, eligibility, funding requirements, which you will find on the QR codes that are listed for each of these respective grants. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as shared at the last meeting, the annual Public Utilities Public Workshop was held on April 22nd. There were some really great updates and panels where they discussed cost-effective strategies to reach unserved areas. If folks are interested in accessing the materials as well as viewing the recording, please feel free to use the QR code here on the right-hand corner. Next slide, please. So while the NOFO for the Tribal Connectivity Program is yet to be released, the NTIA recently shared a Get Ready primer to help potential applicants prepare for the grant program. The link to the document can be accessed using the QR code here, which outlines eligible entities and accounts that you need to register in advance. And I will now pass it over to my colleague, James Spencer, Broadband Administrative Manager.
Hey, thanks, Araceli, and hi all. Just wanted to let you know that we're still working our way through the request for innovative ideas process. We received a lot of responses to the challenges you see here in the boxes, and we continue to have productive ongoing dialogue. And that's it for my update, and I'll pass it back to Anne.
Thanks, James. Next slide, please. And just future meeting dates listed below, but also hoping that you see how all of the work of digital equity from the state to communities come together. We look forward to having more great conversations. As always, COPs are on Thursdays, 10:30 to noon, and this QR code will link directly to the registration site for our May 28th meeting. And last slide for me, please. I know we have shared many times that we focus on goal 2 and 3, but great news from our MMBI colleagues that I want to share to highlight a bit about infrastructure, and also since folks have been asking about unserved population and rural communities. In January, and this news just came out about a week ago, but in January, MMBI, Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, activated 423 miles of Middle Mile Broadband Network along Highway 395. They finalized agreement with the Bishop Paiute Tribe for service in March 2026 and connected to the first last mile provider for the state's network this April. So to follow more infrastructure updates, our peers at the MMBI share a lot more details at the Middle Mile Advisory Committee meeting and the California Broadband Council meetings. Both links are here in the chat and on the slides. So looking forward to welcoming you all there at those meetings. And with that, I close our OBDL CDT updates. We will stick around for a while if folks have questions for us. Want to drop the slides? Yeah, and thank you all for joining us again at April 30th, Community of Practice. And Amanda is helping me put some of our important links in the chat. So if you want to stay connected, please subscribe to our monthly email update where we announce all of this and more. So subscribe to our monthly newsletter, as well as contact us at broadbandforall@state.ca.gov if you have any questions. Again, slides, recording, minutes will be posted on our past event page after it's been remediated for accessibility. So sticking around for questions, and thank you again for hanging out with us. Thank you to all of our speakers and our ASL interpreters. All right. I'm seeing none. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.